The only thing that matters for the U.S. is what is the default currency of the world, and secondly, who brokers the power. So those are the two issues that are at stake. Now, obviously, the world for a very long time has used the U.S. dollar as its default currency because it basically is the price of all commodities, whether it's gold or oil, right on down precious metals. And so I don't see that changing because nobody's going to take the Chinese yuan instead, no sovereign, not because the Chinese people are bad people, it's just that nobody trusts the Chinese government.
Hey, soldiers, you heard what Kevin O'Leary just said. It's all about who owns that default currency, the world reserve currency, and who brokers the power. Okay, well, you also heard him say that nobody's taking the yuan. Now, he's right on that one piece, that it's all about who brokers that power, but we're seeing China become more and more of a player in terms of brokering power. And we are also seeing, contrary to what he just said, we are seeing countries accept the yuan. All right. So I know he knows this. Kevin O'Leary is a very intelligent individual. You may not like his brand of, whatever it is he does, investment advice or his personality, but he's very intelligent. So that causes me to question why he's trying to further a narrative that says that the United States dollar, the petrodollar, the greenback is not in trouble. It is, Kevin. And to the extent that you keep trying to sound like or succeeding in sounding like someone like Jim Cramer, who is totally lacking in credibility, I think it's bad for the brand, especially on the heels of the FTX debacle, Kevin O'Leary. So let's get into this. No one's taken the yuan. Nothing could be further from the truth. More and more institutions are taking the yuan, and we are countries. Sovereign nations. Okay, he said no sovereign. It's not true at all. Now, I know that when we start going through these countries, there's going to be the reflex. Maybe Kevin O'Leary would have the reflex to just write them off because, they're either developing or their economies are not as large as the United States of America. So what? This thing has to start somewhere, right? And it has started. We are in the midst of seeing the creation of a multipolar world where currencies and political power are concerned. Guys, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You must enlist. Become a soldier of finance. It's easy to do. Just hit subscribe. Let me know you did so in the comments and I will salute you. I also implore you to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. This audience does such a fantastic job of hitting that button and giving that vote of confidence, showing the YouTube algorithm that this is content worth listening to, worth consuming. Guys, we also have the members only, the Officers Club. How do you join? Well, you hit join and learn about what we offer over there. I can tell you right now, it's a tremendous value. All right, so let's get into this. Now, the first thing he said was nobody's taking the yuan, right? I guess nobody would, is nobody Brazil? Okay. All of these countries have started to not totally move away from the dollar. That would be a mischaracterization, but you are seeing companies diversify, okay? Moving into other currencies, doing things with other currencies, and also buying gold at a prodigious clip. The yuan, now get this, okay? Base this and compare this to what he just said, Kevin O'Leary. The yuan overtakes the dollar to become the most used currency in China's cross-border transactions, right? This is the first time in history that this has occurred. The yuan became the most widely used currency for cross-border transactions in China in March, overtaking the dollar for the first time, official data showed, reflecting efforts by Beijing to internationalize the use of the yuan. Cross-border payments and receipts in yuan rose to a record $549.9 billion in March from $434.5 billion the month earlier. This is according to Reuters calculations based on data from the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. The yuan was used in 48.4% of all cross-border transactions, Reuters calculated, while the dollar's share declined to 46.7% from 48.6% the month earlier. So China's trading partners are diversifying. Okay, they're using the dollar for just less than half of the transactions, and that is a decrease. So yes, indeed, we are seeing the yuan become a credible currency. Now, Kevin O'Leary has made comments that, China, in terms of their trustworthiness, the government, and he has a point there because China is not transparent in terms of its economic data. And look, the United States has become less transparent. You remember, we're fudging unemployment data, we're fudging GDP data, and last year we even went so far as to say, forget the fact that we set a precedent for decades saying that a recession was 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Forget that. We're throwing that out the window. So if we live in here in America, we certainly can't throw stones if we're living in this glass house. Actually, it's not even clear glass. It's opaque. It's not transparent at all when it comes to our financial data. You've got to really dig deep to see what's going on. Okay, so now Kevin O'Leary's a Canadian, so he may have a different situation with his government, but, they're dealing with challenges too. This is the government that Justin Trudeau thought would be a good idea if you protested an issue that he was in love with, then your bank account should be seized. So we're down here fudging numbers and can't decide on what the definition of a woman is. And the bastard love child of Fidel Castro is up in Canada, doing his thing by restricting access to your bank account if you disagree with him. So we all have our cross to bear. Okay, so look, the other thing is countries are starting to look, well, they've been looking at us and saying, what the hell are these guys doing? Look at that debt ceiling farce. At the end of the day, nothing really is changing. There's a 0.2% difference in spending. We are still going to blow through $50 trillion in terms of our national debt by 2032. Okay, these guys are addicted to spending. You've got Twinkle Toes, that's what I call Lindsey Graham. He's out there saying that money given to Ukraine is the best money that the United States has ever spent. Okay, so he's effectively a senator. He's the senator from Kiev, okay? Because he's certainly not as enthusiastic. He's never been that enthusiastic about causes here in the United States of America. All right, so you've got that piece going on. Now, gold. More and more central banks are buying gold. We cover that all the time. But this is another example of the diversification away from the dollar. Okay, more rank and file individuals are saying, look, gold is a good long-term investment. We've got Americans consider gold the second best long-term investment option, according to a recent Gallup poll. Gold beat out stocks, bonds, and savings accounts. The perception that gold is the best investment over the long term rose from 15% in 2022 to 26% in the 2023 poll, overtaking stocks at the number 2 spot. Real estate has held the top spot since 2013, with 35% of Americans rating it the best long-term investment in the most recent poll. So people are waking up to the value of hard assets. I can't even believe savings accounts made the list at all, but whatever, they did. And so you're seeing not only the people, the average retail mom and pop American say, yeah, gold is looking even better and better every day as we get more into the monopoly money stage of the US dollar. But as we cover so often, the central banks out there gobbling up gold. The recent survey said they're going to continue with that trend. Now, these central banks are buying gold. They can't take that money and buy U.S. treasuries, all right? That same money, okay? So you're seeing a genuflection toward more gold, fewer U.S. treasuries. Nearly a quarter of central banks plan to buy more gold as the divide between emerging and advanced economy grows, says the World Gold Council survey. Central banks remain very keen on boosting their gold reserves, with 24% saying they plan to buy more precious metal in the next 12 months. This, again, according to the World Gold Council. Following a historical high, and this is a quote, following a historical high level of central bank gold buying, gold continues to be viewed favorably by central banks as a reserve asset, said the survey that polled 59 central banks between February 7th and April 7th of this year, 2023. Financial market concerns planned purchases of domestic gold production and portfolio rebalancing are driving the additional buying. Okay, so financial market concerns would be, you could house within that category the declining dollar. And when I say declining, I'm talking about mainly its faith. The faith in the dollar is rapidly declining. Quote, these results come amidst a backdrop of ongoing geopolitical tensions as the war in Ukraine continues and the ensuing macroeconomic fallout of prolonged inflation and tighter monetary policy persist. Adding to these concerns is the banking sector crisis in the United States and Europe, which began in early 2023. Central banks also like gold due to its historical position, performance in times of crisis, store of value, inflation hedge properties, and ongoing geopolitical and systematic financial risk. So look, guys, the central banks want gold for the same reason that the people want gold, okay? Security, preservation of wealth, all right? We've done a lot of videos here lately on the this quest that corporations have toward wokeness and how it's really not helping the bottom line, how it's more important to them to check boxes that correspond with ethnicity, sexual identity, blah, 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 okay? As opposed to looking at a resume and saying, oh, I think this person can really help us make some money, okay? It's now, and we're in an era where we're trying to force outcomes, okay? Diversity is our strength, right? Well, if you look at the stock of several of these companies that have jumped in head first, if you look at the ETFs, if you look at that Harvard Business Review, the ESG ETFs, and the Harvard Business Review article that we've covered on multiple occasions, as of today, that whole thing is just not working, okay? If by working, you mean turning a profit, okay? Something that you're going to put your money in knowing that, hell, I'm going to put my money in this and it's going to, it's just going to take off return on investment wise. And look, over time, somebody has come out and said, mentioned it to me. They say, hey, look, Tyrone, it might take 50 years, but this ESG thing is going to work. But yeah, that's great. I don't have 50 years, okay, for my money to multiply. All right. Yeah, 50 years might work well. One of the things, I'm on the finance committee in my church, okay? So yeah, 50 years work well for the church because that's an entity that will be alive 50 years from now. I mean, I'm all about generational wealth, but I do want to enjoy some of it, okay, in my lifetime. So that's where we have it. That's what's going on now. I do want to just let you know that with regard to that debt ceiling debacle. All right, so I was listening to a radio show today, and a young lady who's the host, she said, we're going to come back after the commercial break, and we're gonna talk about the debt ceiling. Who are the winners? Who are the losers? Well, I can tell you right now, the losers are us, the American people, okay? But we're a unique type of loser because we keep on voting for the types of individuals that will ensure we will never achieve victory. We are in too deep, guys, with the debt. We've got commitments made out the wazoo in terms of Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, military retirements, okay? And we're staring down the barrel of, right now, $32 trillion in debt. But these guys have made sure with this debt deal crap, they've made sure that we're gonna rack up a lot more than that before it's all said and done. Late last week, we were the first, Zero Hedge was the first to summarize what the bottom line of the so-called debt ceiling deal meant for the U.S., for future generations of Americans, and for the ridiculous melodrama which gripped Washington, D.C. A negative 0.2% GDP cut in nominal spending. 0.2%. Plan out your budget. Okay, then cut 0.2% and tell me how impactful that will be. So that 0.2% cut will push total debt to $35 trillion by the end of Biden's term. So that's 2 years from now. I find that hard to believe. I think it's going to actually end up being closer to $36 billion by that time, if not more. And that's barring any crisis that we might get into. Remember, the debt spiked after 9/11 when Bush ran us up to the military responses, and also the COVID response. Trump, responded to that and spent a lot of money, and so did Biden. And money here, money there. We had Obamacare, money everywhere, right? That we just keep printing up. In the game Monopoly, if you read the rules, and the rules are clear, they say if you run out of the money that we've printed for the game, you can just write more money up. You can just create more money, or you can create IOUs. You can do whatever you need to do to keep the game going. So I'm confident that Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell have read the Monopoly game rules, and they're pretty much playing by them. So it's a no-win situation from the standpoint of the solvency, the long-term solvency of the U.S. And I don't care what Kevin O'Leary says, okay? Sure, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Might not happen in your lifetime, depending how old you are. But I will say this. I would encourage everyone to practice type of investment techniques that are going to find you in good stead, regardless of whether or not the United States collapses or whether or not we go just into a new golden age and everything in between. So hard assets, okay, are one way to strive toward that. More people are waking up to gold. We went over that. Real estate. Listen, also, with this debt rising, that income taxation is going up. So you're going to have to look at those types of vehicles that help you to mitigate your future taxation. All right. Legal structures like the Roth IRA is one, but it is limited. The permanent life insurance policy, if properly structured, is a much better bet. Now, do both, okay, if you're so inclined. But you're going to have to protect yourself from taxation. And the IRS allows you to do that, okay, with these two vehicles, the Roth IRA and the permanent life insurance policy. Because with all this debt being racked up, who do you think they're looking at to come get that? Even though it's impossible, your share right now of the national debt is around $250,000 per taxpayer, okay? So you might say, I ain't paying that. Maybe you won't, but you will pay some of it before you get out of here, before you leave this stage. Okay, shuffle off this mortal coil. They'll make sure of that. And as I always say on this channel, pay your taxes. Okay, pay what you owe. Because we, as soldiers of finance, don't have time to be sitting in a jail cell when we could be making money, or to be under some restitution agreement that's sapping our ability to purchase assets. So pay your taxes. It makes life easier. Okay, you got a problem with taxation? Write to your congressman, your senators, work it in that fashion while paying your taxes. All right, so let's take another look at another pressure that the dollar has on it. Okay, Saudi Arabia, look at what they are getting ready to do. Okay, that's going to really, it's going to be like you ever see somebody get hit You know, you're watching TV, they get hit in the solar plexus, they double over, and then the person comes and they give them an axe handle to the back and just knock them flat. That is what is about to happen to the petrodollar based on what Saudi Arabia just did. Check it out, guys. I'll talk to you soon.